All right, episode 550 of the podcast. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. Welcome back to the show. We're doing some Knicks. Like I said, we're going to be slowly doing more Knicks as the Yankees season is wrapping up with about a month to go. And, the team not being good and interesting, and we're going to be less engaged with that. We're still going to be putting out episodes every series, but they might be shorter. They might be audio only. They might be less detailed because who cares right now about the Yankees? And we're going to be putting out more Knicks stuff more and more as we get closer to the 2023-24 NBA season. And with that, that's what we'll be discussing in this episode. The 2023-2024 schedule was just released on, I believe, Thursday. We'll talk about that. We'll discuss the in-season NBA Cup tournament, which, we have some thoughts on that. We'll talk maybe about a little, trade stuff, superstar stuff, maybe a little financial things. We'll see. But yeah, episode 550 of the podcast. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. You are listening to BD4. So, with that said, let's get to the intro, and we'll start the episode from there. All right. Welcome to BD4, an RJ Carbone podcast. BD4, where there is no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. BD4 is a 5-star show on Apple Podcasts, also available in video format on YouTube and Spotify. So thanks for stopping by, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Champion of the world, Tourney, looking, see ya! Anthony for three, bang! That one goes down, and the game is tied! Time!
Penetrates, creates, and showing some dexterity as well with the left hand.
Yankees win!
All right, let's do it. Let's talk Knicks. Episode 550 of the podcast. As I'm recording, it is Saturday. Saturday, the 19th of August. 10 p.m. out of Saturday. I just got back home. I was at my buddy's watching some of the prelims for the UFC card, which I'm going to tune into the main event, 2 main events, as soon as I finish this, recording this episode, which hopefully can be under an hour, but we'll see. You know what, man? I wanted to talk about this. It has nothing to do with the Knicks or the Yankees, but I wanted to bring this up at some point. This is pretty cool. And you can go down below into the timestamps and skip ahead to when we start talking about what really matters in this episode. But I think I was on Instagram, and I think it was Rogan who posted it. This dude, this country folk singer, he's an artist. He's very well known now. This was like not even, maybe a little over a week ago. Dropped a song, like a music video, and it's been blowing up, dude. This thing has millions and millions of views and listens. And again, it has not even been out for 2 weeks yet. It's this country music singer, or I think you call it folk, Appalachian folk or something. It's very similar to country. Oliver Anthony. And he dropped this music video titled Richmond. What was it? It was Richmond, North of Richmond. And man, it is a song. If I've ever heard a song that unites people, this is the one. This is a song for the American working class. This is like, in a time where we are today, where everyone's button heads and, you got idiots on the left arguing with idiots on the right. This is a perfect song to just like unite people. And it has like 99% of the internet is like united over this, from what I've seen, and it's just basically about the American working class and how like it's so hard to make a damn living today. And it's got nothing to do with political affiliation, but it talks about the problems in society at the same time, and you should just check it out. It's called Richmond, North of Richmond, referring to DC, but he uses that as a metaphor because you can really say this is not just an American thing, it's for the world. It's a really good song that unites the American people. And like the video is perfect. The scenery makes it good. The way the dude looks just makes everything about the video is perfect. It's an immaculate video, which is why he's blown up. And this kid is like some small town dude who lives off grid, and he was like a factory worker. He talks about some really good stuff in that song. It's a short song, 3 minutes, and it says everything it needs to. And again, I've seen left-sided people, right-sided people all post this on the internet over the last week, and I've never seen people unite like this before. And I'm sure there are your exceptions in the 1% who are just miserable with their life and try anything to get offended at anything, but people are uniting over this, and it's really amazing, and this is something that I advise anybody to check out. With that said, I don't know why, I just wanted to bring that up because I thought that was pretty cool. I saw it and I was like, wow. You know, and I'm not a music guy. I don't listen to music. But I checked it out because I saw it on Rogan's page. He dropped it. It came up across my news feed, and I clicked it, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. Let me go to his YouTube and check it out. And wow, millions and millions of views, I'm telling you. So I don't know how to transition from that, but we'll talk some Knicks. And pull my notes up here. Yeah, on Thursday, I believe it was, or this was actually, I want to say Tuesday, the NBA released the in-season tournament NBA Cup schedule. For those who don't know, they added in this new tournament this year, an in-season tournament the NBA is going to have. It's taking place in Las Vegas, Nevada. And there are going to be, I think, actually 30 teams are invited to start the tournament. But I think 22 will advance, and then you work it down from there. But the Knicks are in Group B East. And in the Knicks group, they have themselves, the Bucks, the Heat, and the Wizards. So pretty tough. And group play for this tournament is actually not successive. So all the games in group play are scattered out through the month of November. It's from November 3rd to the 28th. And again, everyone's invited to group play. I believe each team gets 4 games in group play. And after that, you advance to the knockout rounds, where you have the quarterfinals on December 4th and December 5th. 8 teams play 4 games. Then after that is the semifinals on December 7th, where 4 teams play 2 games. And then you have the championship game on December 9th. So I'm going to try to break it down as best as I can for those who don't know how it works, but all of the teams from group play that don't advance to the quarters will be assigned to 2 normal regular season games, 1 home and 1 road, on December 6th and December 8th. So if you look at the NBA schedule, each team has like the first week and a half of December empty right now because it's for those knockout rounds. So for the 22 teams that don't advance to the quarterfinals following group play, they will be playing 2 regular season games, like just normal regular season games, while the other teams who are in the tournament play the 2 other games in the tournament leading up to the championship, which is an 83rd game. So the seedings for that will determine the matchups for these games using the group play standings in each conference, so seeds 5 to 15. And 2 of the games will be scheduled cross-conference because there's going to be an odd number in each conference that don't advance to the quarterfinals. And those cross-conference games will be between bottom finishing teams in group play, and no team will play more than one of its 2 games cross-conference. The other games will be scheduled within conference, featuring teams that are otherwise scheduled to play each other 3 times over the course of the season whenever possible. Hold on one sec. All right, sorry, I had to pause for a second. So if I repeat something that I just said, it's because I paused it for a few minutes and had to take care of something. But the other teams will be scheduled within conference, featuring teams that are otherwise scheduled to play each other, again, 3 times over the course of the season whenever possible. But the losing team in the quarterfinals in each conference will play each other in a regular season game on December 8th. But basically for the Knicks, I'll put it in an example. If they don't play well enough in group play and they get booted, then they go back to business with 2 regular season games during that blanked out spot in the schedule that we said in like the first week and a half in December. But if they do play well enough in group play and they advance, they will play 1 quarterfinals game that counts as a regular season game. And if they win that, they will play 1 semifinals game, which counts as a regular season game. And if they win that, they play the finals game, the championship game, which would eventually be 83 games in the 82-game season. But that game doesn't count as a regular season game. So the Knicks group play schedule was also released during this. And they have 4 games. Friday, November 3rd, they're in Milwaukee. That's an ESPN game. Friday, November 17th, they're in Washington. Friday, November 24th, they host Miami. It's also an ESPN game. And then Tuesday, November 28th, they host the Charlotte Hornets at the Garden. So it'll be tough for them, you know. Obviously, you want to be able to beat teams like Washington and Charlotte. But then you got Milwaukee, Miami. I could see them doing 3-1. I could see them doing 3-1. I think they're going to lose to the Bucks. The Bucks are way too tough for the Knicks. It's a tough matchup. It's always been tough for them. But they can beat the Wizards. They can beat the Hornets. That Miami game, to me, will be the swing game. The Miami game might be the difference between the Knicks advancing into the quarters and the Knicks not advancing. But they can compete with them. They can compete with Miami. They showed all year last season and of course in the postseason when they played them very tough that they can compete. They forced a game 6. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know if I'm like too into it. I just like to me it's like what's the selling point to the fans? Because I know there are incentives for the teams and the players and coaches. Money, you get the NBA Cup trophy, and I know for the league, the purpose of it is, it's marketing to the casual NBA fan and making money and growing the audience and all that stuff. And maybe some of it is to stop load management, and it's an attempt to keep these organizations engaged. But like, what's the selling point to the fan, to the diehard fans, right? Because I can see a lot of people just seeing this as a bunch of regular season games with a label slapped on it just to make it seem fancy. The NBA Cup seems like a participation trophy. I can already see the memes for the team who wins the NBA Cup and doesn't win the finals or even get into the playoffs. Like, I can already see those fan bases and teams being made fun of. And the money each of these players get, I believe it's less than $1 million. So that's the equivalent of like, what, $5 for these guys? So I'm kind of having a difficult time finding a difference between a regular season game and this in terms of the energy I'm going to have. Can anybody tell me the difference? What's the difference between an NBA Cup team or an NBA Cup game and an NBA regular season game? Truly, what's the true difference? Now, if the stakes were raised and the incentives were a bit stronger, sure. Like, what about home court in the playoffs or something for the winner? That'd be interesting, you know? Or what if two teams tie in the seedings, but the team with the better record in this tournament gets that? You know, like, if you tell me those kinds of things, yeah, you can for sure get me engaged. You know, something to do with the NBA playoffs in a way. Helps you in the seeding, whatever, home court, like, something would really get me engaged. I need something there that has to do with the playoffs, because that's all that matters to us at the end of the day. I will say this. Knicks players might be engaged because regardless of what the fans see it as, the Knicks players, they're young. They've got shit to prove. Some of them want contracts, and most importantly, they're all being coached by a guy named Thomas Joseph Thibodeau II. So I have a feeling Thibodeau is going to be a hard-o here. And like take it very serious. And I just hope he doesn't run these guys into the ground or they're extremely fatigued in the second half of the season after this. Because the Knicks do have that first West Coast trip following the tournament of the year. If they go to the championship event, the Knicks, literally like 2 days after the championship event is the start of the first West Coast trip for the Knicks. So, you obviously want to win every game you can, but that's the NBA tournament. So, it'll be interesting to see how this works. If it's just going to be a one and done thing, or if it's an experiment that ends up being a regular part of the schedule, right? I want to get into it. You know, I'm very open-minded to it. I'm not closed-minded and just like automatically being stubborn about it and assuming it's just going to suck and flop. No, just like with the new rules in baseball this year, I didn't agree with all of them, but I kept an open mind, and a lot of them I like. I'm still not the biggest fan of the pitch clock, but I kept an open mind, and I understand it. So maybe it's something that when the time comes, I'll find myself being invested in. But right now, just thinking about it right here, I don't win me a championship, a real one. It just seems like a participation tournament, but we'll see. And yeah, the NBA 2023-2024 schedule, the 82 game schedule, was released on Thursday. And the Knicks are getting some respect. They've always had some respect with national media in terms of the broadcasting, but they've got a lot of respect last year with the season they had. They deserve it. They have 25 games on national TV this season. 13 of them will be on either ESPN or ABC. Seven of them will be on TNT. So it's going to be some disrespect there from the guys, you know that. And then 5 of them will be NBA TV games. 3 of those games are against Boston, which is cool. Those are always a blast. Those national TV games at the Garden. The real one. Speaking of, the Knicks' home opener is one of those games. Their home opener this year is against the Celtics on ESPN. So that's going to be a blast. It's actually their first game of the season. It's October 25th. It's a Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. game. It's their first game of the season. And we all remember 2 years ago, Knicks' first game of the year against the Celtics at the Garden. It was a blast. Knicks won a thriller. That was the start of Bing Bong. We know how that went. But they got the Celtics on opening night. Their road opener is that Friday against the Hawks on the 27th. Trae Young comes to town. It's always fun when they got Trae Young on the schedule. And it's the Pelicans after that in the first back-to-back of the season. It'll be Atlanta, New Orleans. And then you have another back-to-back not long after that with Cleveland. 2 Cleveland back-to-back games. It's a road home back-to-back for the Knicks. Or guess that's a home and home, you call it. So 3 of the first 4 games are on the road to start the season for the Knicks. But speaking of back-to-backs, the Knicks have 13 back-to-back sets in the schedule this year. So the NBA is trying to do less of them. They're also trying to limit travel. But the Knicks have 13 sets. I'll list some of them. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but they're trying to limit travel. So you got a New York to Boston one in mid-November. You got a DC to Charlotte one not long after that. Mid-December, you've got Phoenix to Los Angeles. Not terrible. You've got Philadelphia to DC early January. Later in January, you have a New York only back-to-back. And then you've got another one from Boston to New York in April. So a lot of them are very close travel, but 13 in total. It's crazy. Just a few years ago, back-to-backs were like very often. But they're trying to limit it. And then if you go to the holidays on the schedule, Christmas at the Garden will be returning. The Knicks will play the Bucks. That's an ESPN game at noon. That's always fun. The Bucks are going to be tough. I have a feeling they're going to go back for that trophy this year. New Year's Day, they play on New Year's Day. They're against the Wolves at the Garden, 3 p.m. game. MLK Day, they're playing the Magic at home, Monday the 15th. That's a 3 p.m. game. And this ain't a holiday, but since we're going in chronological order here, Obi Toppin will return to the Garden in February. February 1st versus Indiana. They will come to MSG. The Pacers actually do play the Knicks before that, though, on December 30th. It's just at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. But Obi comes back to the Garden on the 1st of February, so if you're a big Obi fan, book your tickets, and it's going to be interesting. Easter Sunday, March 31st this year against OKC. I think that's also at the Garden. And we were talking before about West Coast trips. So the Knicks have 2 West Coast trips in the schedule this year, and the first one is in December. The second one is in March. For this December West Coast trip, you've got Utah on the 13th, Phoenix on the 15th, and on the 16th and 17th, you're in LA. You got the Clippers on the 16th, Lakers the next day. So it's going to be tough. That's a tough one. The Jazz are a young up-and-coming team. The Suns are obviously a team with super team upside. Durant, Booker, Beal. Clippers, they've got Kawhi and PG. Maybe they'll load manage. They're always doing that. Same with the Lakers. But the Lakers have LeBron and AD. They're coming off a season where they just went to the Western Conference Finals. And I think coming out of that West Coast trip, 2-2 is acceptable. I think that's what we did in the first West Coast trip this last year. And then you have the March West Coast trip, which is going to be interesting because there are no back-to-backs, but it's a tough one. Pull it up here. So on the 14th, you got Portland. Who knows if fucking Dame will still be there by then? I doubt it. 16th, you go to Sacramento. It's a young team, and they were kind of labeled the Knicks of the West, but they're like a little step ahead of the Knicks. They're a tough-ass team. They beat us last season. The 18th, you got Golden State. They're always competitive. I think they're going to bounce back this year. It doesn't take them long. And then on the 21st, you've got Denver. Obviously tough. So while there are no back-to-backs, you got the reigning champions waiting for you on a travel day after you play 3 games out west before going to Brooklyn. So that's going to be tough to finish out the West Coast trip on. None of these are really gimmies except for Portland. But it's going to be tough to stay over 500 on these 2 West Coast trips. But speaking of Brooklyn, the Knicks and Nets play 4 more times, obviously. December 20th at Barclays, January 23rd at Barclays, March 23rd home at the Garden, And then April 12th, also at the Garden against the Nets. Nets are going to be interesting because they obviously don't have their guys anymore. They got some nice players in return, but they were what? The 8th seed last year, and that was with Durant for a portion of the year. So who knows? Hopefully they still rot in the cellar. So I was listening to a podcast. And they were talking about the first 10 games of the season and the schedule not being the easiest in the first 10 games, and thinking about what the Knicks could do in the first 10 games. So I made my prediction. And in the first 10 games, you've got Boston twice, you've got Cleveland twice, you've got the Pelicans, the Hawks, Milwaukee, the Lakers, the Spurs, and the Hornets. So I went through it, and I think I came out of it saying the Knicks are going to go 6-4 in the first 10 games. So not great, a slow start for sure, but it's not awful either. It's solid. I give them Boston for 1. They'll win one of those Boston games. I think they'll win one of the Cleveland games. They'll win one of either New Orleans or Atlanta, not both. Milwaukee, you can staple that in as a loss. And then I have wins against the Lakers, the Spurs, and the Hornets. Hopefully. So that's 6-4 right there. It's not terrible, but it's certainly not great. Overall, let's bigger picture. Let's hopefully I'm aiming for 50 wins in the number 4 seed. Right? If they get the number 4 seed, I don't care how many wins they have. The seeding is what matters, and ultimately, I would love to aim for the number 4 seed and a third round appearance. That's what I want. I want a third round appearance. That's this year's goal for me, for that to happen. And for that to happen, you need health, obviously, and you need Randle. I'm looking at him. He's got to be the guy to step up in the postseason once and for all. That's how he's going to be judged. But as a prediction, not a goal, I will say 49-33 record and the number 5 seed again. I always like to aim high and predict lower than I aim. So the goal is 50 wins, number 4 seed, and the third round appearance. My prediction, I'm going to say 49-33, the number 5 seed. So 2 games better than last season, the same seed, and I'll take that. But again, it's all about the postseason for me and the growth of this team. What will the journey look like is also important. How they do what they did. But speaking of Julius, he's still here. That's an unfortunate non-shocker. I've let my feelings known on him plenty of times. But I hope he's ready for the season in time with that ankle. You know, I'm still gonna have to root for him because he's on the team, and you know, and even if he is ready, I'm sure it's gonna take a little bit for him to get back into NBA shape. So, listen, again, Julius's 2023-24 season, it's going to be all about the playoffs for me. There's no more praise in regular season games. I'm not going to be hyping him up. We know he puts up numbers. He's all-star caliber. He's great in the regular season. We know that. But I don't care anymore. He's at a point in his Knicks tenure. I'm at a point with him where he needs to show up when it truly matters. So the Knicks need him healthy and productive this season to get there, though, for sure. Right? We can't be taking advantage or having that entitled mentality like we're automatically going to get there, because look what happened after the first time we got there a couple years ago. So we need to get there first, and maybe Randle sees more rest in the regular season from Tibbs with this ankle thing. I doubt it. But that kind of brings me to a little bit of a subtopic here, because the power forward spot is now going to be a little less clogged. I mean, not that Obi was used anyway, but what's it going to look like at power forward behind Julius in 2023-24? The Knicks running it back, basically, is very scary if Randle goes down again. Because if he goes down and it's early in the season, you have no second string for power forward or stretch forward. You don't have a guy there. Tibbs is either going to be forced to run small, or he's going to do the dinosaur lineup that I call, that we all love so much, where he doubles down on bigs. You know, the Jericho Sims, Isaiah Hartenstein front court. He did that when Obi went down last year, and it is ugly. Unsurprisingly, in 2023. But he doesn't see that. But if you do run small, I am for that for sure, because it's modern NBA. It's a positionless game anyway. You got point, wing, and big. Right? But as much as I'm for running small ball, it does take away Josh Hart's best attribute, because he'll see a lot of time at 4, but his best attribute is rebounding. And he's a great rebounder at guard and at wing, but as a power forward, it's not going to play up for him. Even RJ at power forward, same thing. But the good thing, RJ and Hart, they do like to run the break, so they could use their pace as a strength at that position. But I was reading the article by Katz in The Athletic. It made a good point. It's about how a player uses his size at power forward that matters. Whether or not the Knicks have a true second string 4, it's an issue if Randle goes down regardless. Because Obi didn't play traditional power forward. He wasn't this physical big who rebounded, boxed out, played the post, and banged. That wasn't him. He spent time spotting up, running cuts, DHO on the perimeter, and playing the break in the full court. You know, like even if, like, for example, Isaiah Roby, who's a traditional power forward, if he makes the team and he's the backup forward, do we really want that guy over RJ and Hart at power forward? Like, do we need to see him getting minutes just because he's a traditional power forward? So, the Knicks are banking on Randle to stay healthy for all of 2024, and that kind of scares me, you know. He goes down, and that's going to hurt the most out of anybody else who goes down, because while Brunson is the best player, you've got Quickly right behind Brunson, more than capable of starting at point guard, as we've seen. But Randle, there's no depth at that position. And the only depth that you do have in Hart and RJ are going to be sliding up. So can RJ Barrett take that next step? That would help. Can Grimes take that next step to being that 3-and-D wing? Can Quickly take an even bigger leap from being that 6th man of the year runner-up? But I'm looking at RJ. RJ Barrett is a very, very, very important asset to the Knicks for a number of reasons. And we'll talk about that as soon as we get back from break. Episode 550 of the podcast. I'm your host, RJ. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
We appreciate you sticking around and listening so far. When you have a chance, be sure to open YouTube to subscribe, like, and comment. And if you're already watching on YouTube, be sure to head over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review. We appreciate your feedback and are always looking to improve. Now, with that all said, let's get you back to the show.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. You are listening to episode 550 of the podcast, BD4. So can RJ Barrett take the next step and be close to what he was in the playoffs for the Knicks last year? Can he become more efficient, finish better with his right, connect more on his jump shot? Can he become a better defender, staying in front of his man, not straying too far off his defender off the ball watching, getting confused on rotations? So it's the shot IQ, the decision making, the tunnel vision, facilitating the defense. It's all got to improve still. So it's a lot. It's a lot. So he's probably never going to develop into a star player. Not in this offense, at least. It's very Randle, Brunson, ISO-centric. But to think RJ can be a solid number 3 option at wing, sure. I think that's very possible. If he can fit off ball, yeah. If you can get him running off cuts and going downhill, yeah. Can you have him operating the 1-5 pick and roll with Robinson more? Because that was a very successful recipe, that pistol set, that I wish Tibbs ran a lot more last season. But you do have to be a little careful with both and RJ on the floor together because we know about the spacing issues. And hopefully that's something they both worked on in the summer, their shooting. And it also helps that you do have a guy like DiVincenzo now in the mix. But I think if you run RJ some more with the second unit and stagger him in Hart's minutes like you did at times last year, then yeah, he'll get more reps. He'll run the faster pace of play with the unit, with the bench unit, because when he plays with Randle, that's another problem. Randle plays slow. You got to worry about him and Randle playing together as well as him and Hart. So that's the problem about having a player not very multidimensional in RJ, having not a great shooter in RJ and Hart, and having a guy like Randle who slows the game down a lot and plays that ISO post-up game that he does in the half court. But I still think RJ will be a lot closer to what we saw in the playoffs from him last year than what he was in the regular season. I think he'll make a stride. We're going to have to see it consistently. He's now 23 years old. Hopefully playing with this Canada team in the FIBA World Cup helps him. But yeah, he's 23 now. This is going to be his 5th NBA season. This will also be the first year the extension kicks in. And that contract is ascending too, so the money only goes up. So the expectation is going to be there. The pressure is going to be there. Especially as a trade chip. That's another reason we want to see him play well, as a trade chip. And speaking of all that, we'll talk about this superstar trade that we're still waiting for when we return from break. Stay with us here on BD4, episode 550. We'll be right back.
You can also find us on social media. If you'd like, you can follow BD4 on Facebook, and we're at BD4Pod on both Instagram and Twitter. We appreciate you helping us grow more and more every day. Let's get back to it.
All right. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. All right. So the big talk, and this has been a talk forever now, but superstar trade, right? What will the Knicks' next acquisition look like? I don't think any of us want to see any more role players. I think we're done with that. We're set on those, and we have developed a really solid group with that strategy. I'm not knocking it, but we are at a point where the next piece should be the big fish. There are not a ton of superstar names out there on the market or rumored to be on the market. Like there is James Harden, there's Lillard, there's Embiid. I mean, do we need to talk about Harden? That isn't even worth it. To sum it up, he's a toxic poison. I don't want anything to do with him. Everything he's done between the Houston shit, between what he did in Brooklyn, and now what's going on in Philadelphia with him and Daryl Morey, no thank you. Plus, he's an infamous choker. That guy's a poison. I don't want him near the Knicks. I don't want him in New York City. Lillard, I would absolutely love Dame, but I feel like he's either Miami or bust at this point. And then you got Joel Embiid. Maybe the most realistic of the three, but still, I don't know if that's very realistic. Because I just don't see him leaving the city of Philadelphia. He is Philadelphia. He's the guy there. If he asks out, though, Leon would be very dumb to not get in touch with WME and the Philadelphia 76ers. What would it cost? I've looked around. I've seen some proposals, and I've seen one that includes RJ, Mitch, and 4 first-round picks. And I think that's reasonable. Maybe a little more in there. But if that's the case, if it's RJ, Mitch, 4 firsts, that's something you do if you're Leon Rose, no question. The picks make sense to move because you'll be a title contending team. Mitchell Robinson makes sense to move because you'll be getting Embiid in his spot. So RJ would be the only loss. And come on. It's Embiid. But I hope it happens soon. Because the Knicks window I don't want to say it's closing, but financially, it's going to get tricky soon. I feel like they need this move soon because guys are coming off the books. Quickly's already on an expiring deal. But after next season, 2024-2025, the Knicks will be at a point where the window either stays open or it closes and you're reset because you got a ton of guys coming off the books by then. Randle and Brunson will be due for a payday because they'll be opting out. Grimes has a qualifying offer that he's probably going to decline. Really, the only Knicks on the books for 2025-2026, as of right now, RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, Josh Hart, and Donte DiVincenzo. So, the trade should happen soon. And I think it will. Leon was very smart assembling this roster. Right, middling salaries, tradable contracts, young players, and a boatload of first-round picks. And if you look at the guys who are safe from the trade, there aren't that many guys you can pencil in. There are 3 guys that you can pencil in as guaranteed to be safe. Brunson, Randle, and Josh Hart. They're not going anywhere. Hart because he's ineligible to be moved with the new CBA rules regarding extensions. But everyone else is up in air. They are free to be moved. That makes 9 guys. RJ, Quickly, Grimes, Fournier, that's bound to happen very soon. Mitchell Robinson, Hartenstein, DiVincenzo can be flipped easily, and we've seen that. And Jericho Sims and Deuce McBride, who we'll touch on in a second. But I'll say this. RJ and Fournier together, that's something you should entertain for sure, because those are the 2 priciest trade assets. That's, I believe, $43 million in salary right there off the books, if they can move them together. But I have a feeling Quickly is going to be the one to be moved. He hasn't been extended yet since becoming eligible 2.5 months ago. Now, there's no rush for it. The Knicks have until October 24th. But also, the new CBA rules make it very difficult for a team to move a player coming off a rookie contract and onto an extension. Something about how it manipulates salaries. So I think the Knicks could be thinking that way right now. But we briefly mentioned Jericho Sims and Deuce McBride. And I want to conclude with them. As soon as we return from break, stay with us. Be right back.
If you have time in the day or maybe just prefer old-fashioned reading over listening, then you can always follow along and subscribe to BD4 Blog by going to BD4blog.com. We're not on there as often, but when we do post, it's just as entertaining, opinionated, and passionate as we are on this podcast. Thank you so much. And let's keep on with the show.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. Let's wrap this thing up. Sims and McBride. We'll wrap it up with that. Apparently, according to Fred Katz in this article, teams have been asking about Jericho Sims and Deuce McBride as throw-ins, and the Knicks apparently they keep rejecting. I think it's smart right now to do that. First of all, Tibbs is a huge Deuce McBride fan. Both of them, Deuce and Sims, played key roles last season in making contributions when they were called into the rotation. They play defense, they hustle, the rebounding, and you do need depth. You need contributors that are on rookie deals like that. But I think it's smart because both of these guys are still young with room to grow, so there's no value in them right now. So if you move them now, you're not getting anything back. So why rush when you can get something a little better later? Right? It's going to be tough to raise Deuce McBride's value, though, because you got a full year Josh Hart here. You're bringing in a guard like Donte DiVincenzo, so he might not see much time in the rotation, even less than he did last year. Jericho will still play because you know Mitch is going to go down with an injury at some point, and Jericho is going to slide into Hartenstein's role. But yeah, those are 2 guys who could be throw-ins in a superstar deal too. But that's it. We don't need to waste any more time. Just wanted to get a few thoughts across in this episode. So we'll wrap it up from there. We'll head to our final break, get back, and we'll wrap it up with our trivia, and that'll be that. Episode 550. I'm your host, RJ. We'll be right back. I like how I said we're going to head to break, but we went right into the trivia. Whatever. We'll skip the break. So for episode 550, our true or false question. True or false? The Knicks' all-time record in season openers is under 500. Is that true or false? The Knicks' all-time record in season openers is under 500. Let me know the answer wherever you can reach me, and that's it. Episode 555 or 550 is in the books. Talking some Knicks. All right. I think in 551 we'll probably talk some more Yankees, unfortunately. But until then, appreciate you stopping by, and I'll see you. Episode 555. I'm your host, RJ. Thanks for tuning in to BD4. All right. This episode was brought to you by Anchor.
Hey there! If you stayed the entire way through, we thank you immensely for it. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and that you come back for the next episode real soon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, download these episodes, and share them with your friends as well. BD4 is a 5-star podcast simply because of you, and we'd like to keep it that way. Have a wonderful day. Go Yankees, and go Knicks!